Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow room, which is still overflowing. And here we are, we're still working our way through Rachmaninoff. And boy, have we got, well, no, we only have about 5 more videos to go, I think, in Rachmaninoff, and we should be in good shape. Let's see what we have here, because there's tons of it upstairs, too. There's just tons of it. Then there are the complete editions and God knows what. So here's today's little clump. It's a clump, and it's got some interesting things in here, I have to say. Some stuff we want to keep, some stuff we want to get rid of, some stuff we've already talked about. Oh, so much. So we begin with actually a fairly recent release. Where do I put this? Yeah, right here. This was this thing, Pletnev, with the Rachmaninoff third and the Prokofiev third. These are really good performances, with Rostropovich conducting. I think that's the reason they're really good performances, because there's another conductor. So it was very strong-willed, as strong-willed as Pletnev is. And so they don't, Pletnev doesn't get away with doing all kinds of silly, crazy things. I mean, the tempi are not all that fast. The playing is extremely virtuosic. There are many wonderful ideas in both works, actually. I think the Prokofiev is a bit more interesting than the Rachmaninoff, if I have to be completely honest. But they're both excellent. They came out, when would this come out? 2003. Gosh, it seems like it was just yesterday. It really does. I'm amazed. So that's on Deutsche Grammophon. Then we have the Rachmaninoff number 2 with Temirkanov, his RCA recording, the second one, with the vocalies. And oh, I remember this so well. I've told this story before, but I might as well tell it again because it's a good story. I saw him do this with this orchestra on tour at Carnegie Hall. I think it was with this orchestra. It was on tour at Carnegie Hall. Now, Temirkanov, his recordings are totally different from his live performances, because his live performances, he was happy to cut and slice and dice and rearrange and do things that he wouldn't dare do on a recording. For example, his Shostakovich 7th, Leningrad, had like huge cuts in the slow movement and the finale and whatnot, and Rachmaninoff 2 as well. I never got over the finale. It was unbelievable. It took like 3 minutes. I mean, in real life, like in this performance, it takes 14. But he must have gotten through it in 4. It went. I mean, it was ridiculous. And they were bad cuts. I mean, they didn't make any musical sense. So after the performance, I was there with my colleague, Victor Carr, who writes for ClassicsToday.com, and we were looking at each other, going like, "Oh my God!" And the head of BMG was there, and he was a very nice man who had nothing going on up here. I mean, the elevator did not go to the top floor, and as we were leaving, he recognized me, and he said, "Oh, what did you think of it? Wasn't that terrific?" I said, "Yeah, it was terrific." He said, "We've got a new recording of it coming." I said, "Oh, really? You do? That's wonderful." I said, "Is it going to be cut?" And he looked at me and said, "What do you mean?" That was the end of that conversation. But to make the point, I have yet another recording of Temirkanov's first Rachmaninoff Second Symphony with the Royal Philharmonic, coupled with The Dullest Manfred Ever, featuring Andrei Previn and the LSO. We talked about this in a prior video, and one of you asked in the comments, which Temirkanov recording? Well, I was very clear about which one. I was holding this up and waving it around and saying, Royal Phil, Royal Phil, Royal Phil, not the remake. The remake's really good. It's very, very good, but this one was really, really special and better recorded, quite frankly. So there are the 2 Temirkanovs. Then we've got all these Eloquence things. Now, these Eloquence things are interesting because, from Australian Eloquence, one of them we should get rid of right away because it's this crappy Dutoit Philadelphia one. I guess I had a couple of these sitting around. So we talked about how lousy the Dutoit Philadelphia Rachmaninoff cycle was, which just was dreadful. But now we have Symphony number 2 with the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande and Paul Kletzky. Kletzky made a bunch of recordings for Decca with this orchestra too, of interesting repertoire. He did Nielsen, and he did like all kinds of interesting things. And this is a very good Rachmaninoff too. It really is. The orchestra is not 100% like totally fabulous or perhaps idiomatic, but he gets them to play. And the Isle of the Dead is the one with the Concertgebouw and Ashkenazi. This was the first release on CD. And I'm really glad it's not Ashkenazi's Rachmaninoff 2, which I know other people loved it, but I find to be not terribly interesting and not all that well recorded. So this is really a find on Eloquence, and that was its first CD release. Then we had Symphony Number 1 with the Rock with Walter Weller, with the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande in Symphony Number 1, and the London Philharmonic in The Rock. And again, these were first CD releases. They all got subsequently re-released and whatnot. I mean, Walter Weller was another conductor who did a bunch of interesting things. He did a Prokofiev cycle. He did a Beethoven cycle on Chandos, which nobody much cared for. But he was a good, solid musician. And, it's not the most exciting Rachmaninoff one. Here, Ashkenazi is the one with the Concertgebouw. But still, I mean, it was not a very frequently heard piece back in 1973 when this thing came out. So that was nice to have. And I'm happy to hear it again. Then we've got Piano Concerto Number 2, first release on CD with Alicia de la Rocha and Charles Dutoit and the Royal Phil. Not bad. It's a little bit lacking in weight, I think, and it has a couple dead spots here and there, but De La Rocha was a wonderful pianist, so that's nice to hear. And the Symphonic Dances with the Philadelphia and Dutoit, which is like, très médiocre, as they would say in the biz. Then what else have we got here? The Youth Symphony, which is just that single D minor movement that doesn't sound like anybody, with the Concertgebouw and Ashkenazi. The Third Symphony with Kletsky and the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande, which is nice to have, and it's really quite good. And the Fourth Piano Concerto with the London Symphony and Previn and Ashkenazi from the Ashkenazi Previn Complete Concerto cycle. So it's kind of a curious disc, but it's worth having for the Kletsky stuff. Kletsky was one of those conductors who was worth collecting, actually, and he appeared in strange niches and highways and byways of the discography. Then we've got the Second Symphony. No, not the Second Symphony. The Symphonic Dances, the Isle of the Dead, and the Rock, with the Royal Stockholm Phil and Andrew Davis on Finlandia. Why? That was the question. It was the question. I mean, there's nothing wrong. They're solid, but on Finlandia, and I mean, Finlandia was a label back in the day. I don't think it even exists anymore. It's probably owned by Universal. No, it's Warner. It's the Warner Music Group. Maybe Warner should just do a Finlandia box with everything on Finlandia. Anyway, here it was, and I kept it, well, because why not? And then we've got, what's this thing? Oh, Temirkanov again, doing the Symphonic Dances and the Paganini Rhapsody and the Aleko Overture with Dmitry Alexiev. Now, this I have because the Paganini Rhapsody is really smoking. It's very, very exciting. It's a really terrific performance of that. The Symphonic Dances are also very good. You want more tam-tam at the end. Sorry, but, it's very good. The Aleko Overture is 3 minutes long. A lot of these Temirkanov St. Petersburg recordings for RCA were very, very good. His Shostakovich was very good. These are all worth hearing. They're estimable. The problem is that there's just so much stuff. But for Dmitry Alexiev fans, this was something that you wanted to hang on to. So there you have it. 10 Rachmaninoffs in this clump, and we move on to the next clump. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.